The clock is at 0, and another Cougar football game is in the books.
5 minutes to go in the first. Bachmeier surveys, pulls, touchdown Cougars. Mr. BYU, Chase Roberts.
The ruling on the field is a
The ball never made it from our vantage point.
Well, Traylon Maddox is able to take the snap, and then it's just meeting the linebacker in the hole.
So they did call it a touchdown. There's confusion amongst the officials, and we're tied at 7 apiece. Haynes King off the play fake, open, touchdown! They convert immediately. J.T. Byrne. They're going to keep it on the ground. Nawahani. Signal touchdown. There it is. Enoch Nawahini with the score for BYU. 9th play of the drive for the Cougars. Bachmeier keeps it on the ground. Mooney. Touchdown. Got in. And he's rocking the baby to sleep as they take the lead. BYU with a surgical drive. Bachmeier disemboweling that Yellow Jacket defense.
Now it's time to break down all the action. You're listening to the Cougar Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome into the Cougar Postgame Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me as BYU gets the victory, Alex, celebrating the Pop Tarts Bowl victory, 25-21 over Georgia Tech. What a win for the Cougs, 12th win of the season, all in all, finishing the year 12-2.
Fantastic way to finish the season. You have the comeback win at times there. Specifically, maybe in the third quarter, man, it looked like the Cougars were going to have a little bit of a trouble to try to pull this one out. But then in the fourth quarter, and I mean, the second half overall, BYU's defense begins to clamp down. The offense still struggled a bit in the third, but massive credit to BYU, massive credit to the coaching staff. The offense in the fourth quarter really came alive, and they were able to get the touchdown off the blocked field goal, which I think was a massive turning point for BYU in this one. And then obviously march it down, you get the touchdown, and then defense coming up big again to end the game. Great comeback win for BYU. Phenomenal again to be 12 wins on the season.
Yeah, you come out at halftime, you're trailing the Cougars, obviously, down 21-10 at the half, and then they begin the third quarter, or they end the third quarter still down 21-10. There's no action there. They had the brutal interception in the end zone by Bear Bachmeier, and it honestly felt like that was game. With BYU walking away from the end zone, I think that was their second trip to the red zone of the game without coming away with any points. And it was like, okay, that's your freshman quarterback making a huge mistake right there where you can't afford it. And it felt like that was game, but BYU's defense definitely able to clamp down and play a lot better in the second half, not allowing any points in the second half.
Yeah.
After a first half in which I think that was our guy Mitch Harper tweeted out that was the second most points that BYU had given up in any first half this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And the defense struggled, and I wonder obviously how much that plays when you don't have a guy like Jack Kelly who was unavailable in this one. I feel like that made a difference a little bit in the first half, but then obviously credit to Jay Hill, credit to that defensive coaching staff. They made the adjustments necessary to contain Haynes King, and were able to. I think the only big play that Haynes King had in that second half was that big pass at the end, right? That set him up in that final drive that set him up in the red zone. And again, that's a massive credit to the coaching staff. That's a massive credit to the BYU defense for just making those adjustments and being able to keep Georgia Tech out of the end zone in that second half.
Yeah, again, clamping down, right? You give up that huge, let's see, it's 66-yard pass to Rivers. Evan Johnson just gets beat one-on-one, and that sets up Georgia Tech in a really nice spot with 4 downs to go, and they were, I don't remember exactly where they got to, but they were definitely within scoring position, right? And it was like, okay, this is do or die. And you mentioned, no Jack Kelly, that's a huge loss, but you know what, Alex, we got to address this as well. Like, how much of a distraction has this whole Jay Hill thing been for the defense? And that's, now that we're in the off season, that is the next story is who leaves this coaching staff. And I kind of put down a tweet yesterday when the Kyle Whittingham news broke. Like, we're about to find out just how intertwined these programs are. And we talked about that all rivalry week. Like, all of these guys know each other.
Yeah.
They're all buddies. They've all coached with one another beforehand, right? And, with Kyle Whittingham going to Michigan, he's going to take people. And obviously his defensive coordinator at Utah is tied up. he's got a job already. He's not going to Michigan with Kyle. So who's the next best defensive coordinator that Kyle Whittingham knows?
Absolutely. That's Jay Hill. And I'm sure that played a part into this game, right? Because we were talking about it earlier this morning with Jake Hatch on College Football Saturday, and we talked about how there are these guys are kids. They're on social media, they're on their phones, they hear the noise, they see the tweets, they see the reports, and I'm sure that ultimately does factor into the focus on this game and where the focus ultimately comes to this game. But I think, again, whatever was said in the halftime locker room really sparked that defense. And again, that's credit to that coaching staff. That's credit to those players for making those adjustments. But whatever was said, I think obviously makes a huge difference. And then, of course, whatever Kelly Popinga said too on special teams, man, that makes a difference because you come up with a massive block that I think really turned the tide for this game.
Yeah, and we'll get back to the what ifs later, but this was a crazy game, a fun, amazing game to end the season for BYU, right? And it's a situation that gives you hope for the future, and that's what you want to see. Obviously, if you're not in the playoff spot, you're playing in. Obviously, the Pop Tarts Bowl is a huge bowl game. It's going to be one of the most watched non-college football playoff bowl games. It always is because of the festivities and the goofiness of it, right?
Yeah.
But what do you look for in these bowl games? And that's okay. Yes, you're sending guys like Chase Roberts gets to score a touchdown in his final game as a Cougar. Awesome. But you also want to see, what does Bear Bachmeier show us? He's had a month basically off to get ready for this game, and he came out looking shaky on that ankle, and it was clear that he was very banged up still. But for your true freshman quarterback to bring you back down 21-10 in a tough as nails drive in the fourth quarter, and capping it off there with a touchdown run. He got the 2-point conversion, tough 2-point conversion to go up. And it's things like that, man, that's what these bowl games are for. So I'm very encouraged by what we've seen from Bear Bachmeier, not just today, but the entire season. I think he's a guy that BYU fans should be very excited for to have in the Royal Blue for a couple years to come.
Absolutely. And, now you look at bowl games, and I think their importance the importance of the bowl game is going to come in question with everything happening in college football. But I think everybody needs to remember that this is important for some of the young guys. When you do have players unavailable, like an LJ Martin, like a Jack Kelly, who didn't play in this game, you look at some of the young guys and some of the younger talent that you have on this roster, and you look for guys to step up. And I think a guy like Nusi Taumoepeu played phenomenal tonight. He came in, fill up for Jack Kelly, and I think there was a couple of plays in the first half where he didn't set the edge enough, and the running back was able to get out on the outside and make some plays. But again, those adjustments made at the halftime, and the adjustments that he made, I thought overall in the end, like young guys like that stepping up, those are the storylines that you like to see in this bowl game.
Yeah, it's tough to replace an all conference guy like Jack Kelly, right? He's a true do it all guy that you'd like to see. It's once in a generation, but like, this is the same program that gave us Fred Warner. So clearly this school is really good at producing linebackers, but I know that is an area that they have loved the depth on. They love the depth of their linebacker room, and we saw it today. And then you mentioned like LJ Martin being out. Okay, show us what you got, Jovesa Damuni and Enoch Nawahine. Didn't see Preston Rex today running the ball. I thought he'd maybe get a couple carries, but it was Damuni and Nawahine giving us those two combined 17 carries for about 80 yards total and 2 touchdowns. So not too shabby from the backup running backs. And then you get Parker Kingston with 4 carries as well. Obviously, Bear Bachmeier playing on the bum ankle, not going to run it as much today, but this is the running back room that you're going to basically get from now on, with presuming LJ Martin's going to go to the NFL, right? It's not been announced, for sure, but I think it's pretty safe to assume.
Yeah. Whatever LJ decides, right, whether he decides to declare, whether he decides to come back, I think tonight's game made it apparent for BYU that they should probably look at something in the portal. They should probably bring a little bit more in the running back room. Yeah. And that's not to knock Javesa Demoody and Enoch Nawahine, who I think as the game went on, they kind of allowed themselves to get comfortable in the game, right? They allowed themselves to do a little bit more in the game. And I thought in that second half, they showed a lot better. But in the first half, the running game, I think, struggled. And I think ultimately that led to the offense struggling. Plus, you don't have the running prowess of Bear Bachmeier because of the concerns that he has on the ankle, right? And where his health was coming into this game. And so the running game struggled in the first half, Christian. I think that ultimately led to why BYU only put up 10 points in the first half.
Definitely. And I mean, that's basically what we saw all year. And there was the game and a half essentially where LJ missed with that shoulder injury. And then even when he came back initially, he wasn't 100%. And even after that, I mean, that's why he missed today. He's still not 100% from that shoulder. So when we saw BYU turn to their depth at running backs throughout the regular season, it wasn't good enough. And again, similar to Jack Kelly, like nobody's asking the backups to come in and be LJ Martin, but you were not finding any consistency at all. And when the running game's not working, A-Rod can't call the plays that he wants to do. And if you have a true freshman at quarterback with no run game, that's how you get 10 points in the first half, and things like that. So I definitely agree with you. And that's, and again, like seeing performances and standout guys, like feeling confidence is one part of the bowl games, but then you also see, okay, we've had a month of practice. These depth guys are getting opportunities. Transfer portal opens in a few days next week, right? Who are we going to have to dip in? And obviously those decisions have already been made, right? Like what happens in the Pop Tarts Bowl is not going to determine whether or not BYU needs more running backs, but that's something they've kind of been able to figure out themselves within the last month of practices and such.
Yeah. It's just something, again, just something to consider as the transfer portal is on the horizon. And as you start building for next season, whatever LJ decides, if he's here, if he's not, it wouldn't hurt to bring in some of that depth. And then, of course, coming into this game, I think my big question was, too, the health of Bear Bachmeier. Mm-hmm. I had a feeling he wasn't going to be 100%. And the first drive, they call a QB run, and Mikhail Hillstead subs in. And then immediately the next play, Bear Bachmeier tries to improvise and scramble a bit. And seems like he kind of pulls up on that ankle a little bit. And so that obviously, right, happening on your first drive, that's a major concern because you knew that the ankle was, right, the picture that was circulating on Instagram, everybody saw it. He was in a boot. That was a big concern coming into this game of where Bear Bachmeier was. You don't have a healthy Bear Bachmeier. You don't have a healthy AJ Martin. Where does that really leave the offense? And again, I give credit to the true freshman, man, for toughening it out, going out there and putting on a phenomenal performance through the air. They asked him to throw it 38 times. He completed 27, and he went for 325 yards. Just have the one touchdown, though. In hindsight, that's fine. You still win the game, but they asked him to do a lot through the passing game, and I thought Bear Bachmeier answered the bell well.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it was the yardage number is great. He didn't throw for over 300 yards very many times this year. The one touchdown, one interception is like, you'll take that, but then you look at the interception and it's like, yeah, that was in the red zone when they were down, and that could have ended the game there. So that's something that you want to see differently. I was a little bit surprised that Bear's ankle was still bugging him. I mean, it's been 3 weeks since the Big 12 championship. So that is like, okay, that was a much more serious ankle injury than I guess I would have thought. So that makes me wonder, if BYU would have had to play last week in the college football playoff, like would Bear Bachmeier have been able to play? And I guess that's just wondering, and that doesn't really matter at this point anyways. But yeah, he comes out, he guts it out, he throws it almost 40 times, he tops 300 yards, and we talk about the situational mistakes and what he did right, but at the end of the day, he gets the comeback victory, and that's what matters. And that's the Bear Bachmeier that's getting better every single week. And now he gets a whole off season in Provo, which he didn't even have last year. So I'm excited to see what Bear can do next year, man.
Absolutely. And I think that's probably the most important thing is now you have an off season, right, where he can come in and continue to improve. And I'm excited to see what that looks like next year for BYU.
Jumping on to help us break this one down, we're going to get out to the guest line. We got to find a name for this when we've got people helping us out. But we got our good friend Jake Hatch joining us.
Hi, guys.
Producer of DJ and PK.
Hey, Jake.
And then, of course, Jake held down the BYU pre and post role forever. I don't even know how long. A long time.
Quite a while. You guys are absolutely killing it in what you guys are doing with this, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Hatch. Initial thoughts, man, on come behind victory, right? 21-10. Georgia Tech was up for majority of the game, and BYU almost blows it at the end, but they end up getting it.
Yeah, well, you're right. Third comeback win of the season. Remember, they had the Colorado comeback. They also had the Arizona comeback. So this is kind of the game BYU's played all year long, guys. It's not been flashy. It's not been gaudy statistics and the like. It's just kind of a slugfest. And that's what this game kind of devolved into. You mentioned the fact they're down 21-10. That back-to-back touchdowns on back-to-back offensive plays for Georgia Tech. That put BYU in a hole, and it felt like for a long time there, they were not necessarily going to be able to find their way out of that hole. But credit to BYU once again. They just kind of reminiscent of this entire season for BYU, found a way and then come through in the end with another victory. Their 12th and their first 12-win season. I think me and Alex talked about it this morning. First 12-win season since 2001, even though the TV broadcast said it was like 2014. I'm like, that's not right. Come on, guys.
You know what, though? There was a lot of I noticed that there was a lot of inconsistencies on the TV broadcast. Yeah. Like they talked about JoJo Phillips not catching a pass in September, but it was like, no, he came back, right? He came back before that.
You also had Booger McFarland in the pregame. I think the key to tonight is LJ Martin. Bro, have you paid attention that LJ Martin's not available? Like, come on.
You didn't check those Big 12 availability reports. Huh?
Oh, well, but just even checking the BYU depth chart would have told you that.
Yeah.
So that's beside the point. But the credit to BYU, because when you don't have your top two running backs, I can't believe that they were able to generate any sort of rushing attack. But that's a credit to Jovesa Demuni and Enoch Nawahine coming through in the end. The last two touchdowns, tough-nosed, hard-nosed runs by both of those guys to punch in those scores. And I'm not going to lie, it felt like when BYU was 1 for 4 on possessions inside the 10-yard line, it felt like, man, are they going to really have any way to score down in the red zone? And late in the game, those two came through in a big way. They didn't have huge numbers, but the nice part was they found a way in the end. And like I said, this is kind of just reminiscent of how BYU's operated all season long.
Yeah, I think it was massive for the two young guys to kind of make some of those big plays in the red zone and get comfortable. It seemed like they got more comfortable in the game as the game went on. I thought that was massive for BYU being able to come back. But we talked a lot about Bear Bachmeier and where his health was this morning and coming into this one and where he was going to be health-wise. They ended up asking him to throw 38 times. What did you see from Bear Bachmeier, the true freshman tonight, to be able to mount this comeback?
Well, I think it's what they had to do in this game, Alex, quite honestly, because without LJ Martin, without Sione Moa, like you're thinking, okay, how are we going to win this game? And they came out slinging it. And Bear Bachmeier, yeah, he's limited mobility-wise. Obviously, his ankle got dinged up on that first series, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, very first series.
You saw him clearly limping, but that didn't affect his arm because he was able to kind of just plant and throw and get the ball out of his hands. And that's a credit to Carson Ryan, Chase Roberts, Parker Kingston, JoJo Phillips, all the guys who contributed in the passing game. They needed to make themselves available to him in terms of just being open, and they did just that. So that's the nice part is they were able to get the job done. And I think it was a calculated game plan. They're like, hey, Bear, this game's going to be more on your arm because nearly 40 attempts, if that's not a season high, it's close to it.
I did see over 3,000 passing yards on the season for Bear, so quite the
He did go over 3,000. You're right.
Accomplishment there. You're right. They earlier, Hatch, you mentioned the back-to-back touchdowns, and that was almost killed. I mean, we talked about Bear Bachmeier throwing a pick in the end zone, and it felt like that could have ended the game. But man, when Georgia Tech scored and then Hagan fumbles the kickoff, it was like, and then they score right there.
Yeah,
that's when you're like, okay, you got a banged up quarterback. How realistic is it that they come back and actually do this? And they were able to do it.
And to your point, think about it. They went over a quarter and a half essentially from that time on without really generating much anything. So to your point, Alex, that's as you, Christian, to your point, it's well thought out by you saying, hey, that could have been the death knell for BYU in terms of their inability to really generate anything from that point on. But yeah, late they come alive. I think the Bear Bachmeier run for the 2-point conversion showed how truly limited mobility-wise he was, but he just kind of just said, you know what, to heck with it. I'm going to throw 230 pounds at this linebacker. I'm just going to fall into the end zone. And
you know what? You don't have another game after this. Put your body on the line.
Exactly, and he did put his body on the line. So, yeah, I think it really showed, I think, the heart of this BYU team. And Alex and I, when we were doing College Football Saturday earlier today, we talked about the fact, like, you just need to find some way to generate enough in this game. And they did. I said 24-23 BYU. Alex said he thought it was going to be a touchdown game. It was a one-possession game. That's kind of what BYU's excelled at all season long, is one-possession games. They just find a way to win. Like I said, it's not pretty. It's usually not the sexiest in terms of performances for BYU, but it's downright effective. And the fact that they're 12-2 is a pretty incredible mark.
What'd you see from the defense in the second half? Obviously, in the first half, they allowed 21 points, but 0 points to Haynes King in that offense, and then finally starting to turn over Haynes King in that offense in the second half too. The defensive performance in the second half, man, what can you say about that?
Well, that's the thing about it, is it felt like that defense was out of sorts for a big stretch of this game, but they found some answers, and it kind of shows what Jay Hill's capable of. And yeah, there's all those rumors about that Jay Hill might be on his way out of BYU. Who knows what's going to happen? We'll have to pay attention to that. But I think if this was truly his final game as BYU's defensive coordinator, yeah, it wasn't necessarily a great performance, but late, it's exactly what it was. And I think think about it, this Evan Johnson, that 4th and 15, Haynes King throws an absolute dot to the wide receiver. I forget the wide receiver's name, and it's Evan Johnson in coverage. And Evan was in great position, a great pitch and catch. Evan goes up and tries to deflect it, doesn't get it, and it's a 66-yard pitch and catch. Well, guess what? 4 plays later, 4th and goal. Guess who gets the game-stealing interception? Evan Johnson. I think that kind of shows what this BYU defense is made of, and it's kind of been the storyline of the season is, yeah, they may get burned every once in a while, but in the end, they're going to come up with a big play. And I thought that kind of those 2 plays, about 4 plays apart, kind of showed the heart and soul of what this BYU defense has been about all year. Similar thing we talked about, Alex, in the pregame show. This team gives up yards. They will it's no doubt about it. They give up yards. But what they don't give up is points. And another 21-point outing for BYU's defense absolutely held Georgia Tech down and gave them the chance to win it.
It's funny because the second he makes that big pass, Haynes King, right, late in the game, he makes that big pass, and I sat on the couch and I thought to myself, this is where BYU wants you. This is where BYU the defense wants you, right? Red zone defense for BYU has been the story all season long. You get the big pass, you get the big play, great, we'll give it to you. But in this red zone, we're going to clamp down and we're going to make big plays, and that's exactly what BYU did.
Correct, no doubt.
Couple big performances for guys that presumably playing their last game as a Cougar. Carson Ryan, 8 catches, 120 yards. Chase Roberts, 7 catches, 57 yards, and a touchdown. Never got to say goodbye to LJ Martin or Jack Kelly. Those guys inactive today, but how big is it for guys like that who had, I mean, obviously Ryan spent some time at Utah, but a guy like Chase Roberts, who has been a huge piece of this BYU offense for several years, getting a kind of farewell game.
Well, and that's the thing about it, is you want to have your best performance in your final game as a Cougar. And I would say by far Carson Ryan, finest game as a Cougar. There's no doubt about it. 8 catches. He was an absolute menace in the middle of the field. And I've heard from BYU fans all season long, why don't they throw to the tight end? Well, 8 receptions, boys. They did that exact thing in this game. But Chase Roberts, same thing. Chase was keyed upon all game. Just look at the defensive game plan.
It was held all game too, yeah.
Well, okay, we can talk about the officiating maybe in a minute. But he was targeted all game long, both offensively and defensively. Georgia Tech said, "Hey, find number 2," and all he did was make play after play and come up with big plays. So, yeah, those 2 guys, they're going to be missed. And having them go out the way they went out, that's the way you want to go out in terms of having one of your finest performances, especially in the case of Carson Ryan. Who knows what LJ Martin decides to do? He had that shoulder injury and had surgery on it, so he has a decision to make. My personal opinion on the matter is chase that NFL money, but that's me speaking. I don't know what he ultimately is going to decide. And I also got like Jack Kelly. Jack's out of eligibility. It would have been great to see him play one more game for BYU, but it doesn't diminish anything that Jack Kelly accomplished at BYU. 10+ sacks. He's the first guy in over a decade, essentially since Kalani took over. They've never had a double-digit sack season. That's what Jack Kelly had this year. So he, even though he didn't play in this game, he goes out on a high note. And I guess the nice part is all these seniors, Tanner Wall, all these guys who are in their final game as a Cougar, they get to go out, as the shirts and hats said, if you guys didn't see it, the People's National Champions.
I like it.
That's awesome. Real quick, Jake, before I let you go, you mentioned the officiating. It seemed like every big call that was going to be pivotal in this game went against BYU. There was the non-review on the touchdown. There was so much PI. The officiating seemed to play a big part in this one.
It did, and it's disappointing because obviously you don't want the officiating to ever be part of the conversation. But I guess from the BYU perspective, all's well that ends well, and you won the football game. But yeah, there were some absolute glaring missed calls. There were some calls that went against BYU. For the life of me, the John Taumaiapea one where he gets the 15 yards unnecessary roughness for a guy who's still running inbounds, by the way, and he throws him down. I'm like, are we playing football or are we playing patty cake here? So, yeah, there were some disappointing calls, but hey, like I said, all's well that ends well. You won the football game, and the officiating, it is what it is. You just have to move on with it.
Well, Hatch, thanks for stopping in, giving us some thoughts on this game. BYU finishing the season 12-2, winning the Pop Tarts Bowl 25-21. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk about Jay Hill, a little bit of that, and as well as some of these other big performances that we saw today. So thanks again, Hatch. We're going to take a quick break. Be back in about 3 minutes. Stick with us. It's Cougar Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You're listening to the Cougar Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back to the Cougar Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me as well, breaking down BYU's 25-21 win over Georgia Tech in the Pop Tarts Bowl, Alex, and we've got some controversy coming out of the Pop Tarts Bowl.
I know, man.
So let me get this straight. It looks like we've got cookies and cream.
Yes.
What's that other flavor?
Frosted cherry.
Frosted cherry being lowered into the sacrificial toaster.
Yep.
But Slammin' Strawberry opted out. Slammin' Strawberry jumped off of the
toaster.
Jumped
off the toaster, man. Opted out of the sacrifice. didn't want to get eaten. And so
I thought they wanted to get eaten. I thought that's the whole
I thought
point.
they did too. But Scentless Lemon Strawberry decided to jump off the backside of the toaster and forego being eaten by Kalani Sitake and the staff. Kalani, of course, goes over to Cookies and Cream first and takes a big old bite out of Cookies and Cream. And
that's exactly what I would have done.
Me too. And then you would have gotten and then you got Bear Bachmeyer, who went over to Frosted Cherry, took a big bite out of Frosted Cherry. So that is the update on the Pop-Tart sacrifice. Slam and Cherry decided decided to forego.
It's so interesting. And this is why people love this stupid game, right? Like nobody cares about bowl games anymore. So you got to do something to make them draw eyes. And this is what they do. It's a fun, stupid gimmick. And I love it. I'm here for it. In the past, they've only done one Pop-Tart that gets sacrificed, right?
Yeah.
They did two. So the
they were supposed to do three.
They were supposed to do three. Yeah.
They're supposed to do three this year.
Is it only the winning team that gets Pop-Tarts?
Yes.
It should be.
I feel like it'd be kind of messed up to give the losing team. I mean, maybe like
sacrifice. Thanks for that one, Parker.
Maybe in the background, you give them like boxes of Pop-Tarts, but
yeah. Well, and I saw instead of dumping Gatorade on Kalani or whatever, they dump like a cooler full of crushed up Pop-Tarts.
Oh, really? I missed that.
So I love it. And this was a crazy game. I mean, we talked about BYU trailed at halftime 21-10. Of course, Georgia Tech had the back-to-back scores late in the second quarter. They scored, and then I believe it was Cody Hagan fumbled the kickoff return, set Georgia Tech up nicely, and they went up for two scores in a row. It was 21-10 all the way until midway through the fourth quarter, I guess. BYU marches down the field, scores. They did go 3 and out, and then they were able to score again, get the 2-point conversion, and then picked off Haynes King when they were trying to go for the win there. So great performance by the Cougars to end the season with the win, man, because this it got ugly quick, but BYU was never out. And credit to coaching because – I mean, we talked earlier about some of the Jay Hill stuff, but you got to remember the last time they played, the Penn State stuff hadn't even happened with Kalani Sitake yet. So they have had a whirlwind of the last 20 days. Looked like it was going to lose their head coach, and then he comes back, and it's like, okay, everybody's feeling great. Now it's looking like you may or may not lose your defensive coordinator. So, I mean, credit to these players, man. You're dealing with so much off of the field. You go in and ultimately win the game. That second half was awesome. That was true BYU football.
Absolutely. And, give credit to Georgia Tech. I thought in the first half they looked really well. Cody Hagan, muffs the punt, unfortunately, gives the ball back to Georgia Tech immediately after they score a touchdown, gives it back to the Yellow Jackets, and they capitalize with a touchdown. I mean, following after that, right? They go up 21-10. And for times there, it looked like BYU was going to have a hard time to get back into this game. But ultimately, the tide turns with that missed field goal. They get the momentum back. They come up big on special teams after giving up something on special teams earlier in the game, and they're able to get the touchdown. They're able to hold Georgia Tech to 0 points, and they're able to get the go-ahead touchdown late in the game, and then get the game-sealing interception. So, in moments. I think Jed Catch put it perfectly, right? It's been the comeback has been the stories for BYU all season long. You look at the Arizona game, you look at the Iowa State game. I'm blanking on all the other games that came back into this season, but just like every other BYU game, they're able to come back. They're able to pull off a good performance, and they sent off the seniors in a big way with a win.
Sorry, muted myself. But yeah, no, the comebacks have been huge. And you think of the situation they've got with Bear Bachmeyer playing at quarterback. And it's like, if you would have told us before the season started, oh yeah, this team's signature is going to be like coming from behind and winning. That doesn't make sense. But that's what happens when you've got a veteran team around not just a competent quarterback, but a really good quarterback. And I think we've got to give Bear his flowers. I mean, he has played so dang good. He's tough as nails all season. Even thinking back to the Portland State game, their coach going viral, saying he looks like a centaur. Like, this dude is going to have a really good football career. And I think it's safe to say that after the final game of the first full season, he's a really good quarterback. I think most programs in the country would do anything, pay any sort of money to have a prospect like Meyer.
Absolutely.
I don't think he was the best true freshman quarterback in the country, but he was up there. And I think he was snubbed on a lot of the, true freshman awards or watch lists that they put out. I think a lot of them neglected putting his name out there, maybe because he was surrounded by a lot of veterans and whatever. But I think BYU is going to be really happy with who they got under center for the next year or two, or maybe 3, who knows. But at the end of the day, it's funny saying this because you never know what could happen, right? But it doesn't look like BYU needs a quarterback next year.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't look like they need a quarterback next year. I think they're
keep your head on straight, young man.
They're in a really good spot with the true freshman Bear Bachmeyer. And again, man, I think in the thing that stands out to me the most, it isn't, putting up 300 plus yards in the passing game. It isn't what he was or wasn't able to do in the rushing game today. It was more so the fact that BYU's offense struggled in the first half, and he never held his head low. He threw the interception in the third quarter when it looked like BYU needed some sort of points. They needed some sort of response, right? Being down 21-10. He throws an interception.
I was like, oh, that's game.
But he didn't hold his head low, right? He walks over to the sideline with his head held high. Hearing how much of a leader he is for those guys as a true freshman, I think it's super impressive. And certainly heading into next season, like, you have your quarterback. He is going to be a phenomenal football player for BYU for a while. And I think BYU fans hope that he can stay around for a while.
And you know what? Hopefully A-Rod sticks around too. And I know that that's been a controversial opinion, not just this season. I mean, a lot of BYU fans really don't like Aaron Roderick, but I think he's a great offensive coordinator. And I think at times this season, he showed why he's so valuable. And no, he's not perfect. No, OC is. And I think a lot of fans kind of need to realize that, like, every offensive coordinator is going to have a game or two where it's like, they weren't on it today. But you know what? When Aaron Roderick is on it, he truly is one of the best in the country. So you never know what's going to happen with all of the Michigan stuff with Kyle Whittingham. Sounds like he's taking Beck with him as OC. You never know, though, the domino effect, I guess, that could happen. So if you're BYU, I think you really got to lock in on A-Rod. Keep him so you can go into the offseason with the same quarterback and offensive coordinator combo. You don't want your quarterback trying to learn a new offense in the offseason. You'd like to have him, dialed in on the same playbook throughout the year. So that would be huge, keeping A-Rod around. You are going to have to be surrounded Bear with some new weapons, right? You're going to get Kingston back, right? But no Chase Roberts, no Carson Ryan, presumably no LJ Martin. And that skill room is going to look a lot different in the offseason. So you want to keep as much the same as you can.
In this day and age in college football, I feel like continuity and consistency is a little bit rare when it comes to building rosters and having coaching staffs. And so I think last year BYU was really lucky to bring back all the staff that they did and to bring back as much guys as they did. And now you're going to head into this offseason where you mentioned it. Carson Ryan will be gone. Chase Roberts will be gone. We'll see what happens with LJ, but we can I think assume that he's going to declare for the draft and try to move on. But you're going to have to hit the transfer portal possibly and bring in some guys with some college experience and try to surround Bear and continue to surround Bear with some talented weapons like you did this season. I think next year you can rely a lot on Parker Kingston. I think there you're already solidified with one guy, but I think what made BYU really dangerous at times in the offense was being able to have the luxury of having a guy like Chase Roberts and a guy like Parker Kingston, because that just creates headaches for defense. It's a scheming issue for other defensive coordinators, right? When you have to key in on two really, really great receivers. And I think that is a luxury for BYU to have this season. And if you want to have that again, you might have to you might have to look to see, and you might have to look to see to bring in other weapons, or we'll see what's happened development a guy like Jojo Phillips takes this offseason. Yeah. Again, presuming if he decides to stay. And I think that's the thing that sucks about college football right now, is that you just don't know who's going to stay and who's going to decide to test the waters in the transfer portal. And you can't really make those assumptions. And you can't really think about the future knowing that some of these guys can jump in the portal anytime, right? At any time from here to the end of the portal and decide to move on.
Yeah, and that's why it was so huge with the new contract that Kalani Sitake negotiated with the athletic department, right? After they were able to basically tie him down and keep him away from Penn State. Sounds like they're getting a big boost of the NIL commitment towards the football team. And that's built into the contract with Kalani. So those commitments are going to make it hopefully easier keeping your talent around or going and getting guys. And if money is what it comes down to, BYU is going to be big dogs and they're going to be able to play and they're going to be able to outbid a lot of other people. And yeah, if it truly comes down to, okay, we really want this player, we really want him more than, this other school, we can pay more. Come here. And it kind of stinks that that's how it is now, but fortunately for the Cougars, man, they're able to play that game and they're able to win, right?
Yeah.
It's not like they have a little bit of money. Like they are going to be one of the top spenders in the conference, if not the top spender. They're going to be right up there with Texas Tech. There's no reason that they can't. So
yeah,
I'm interested to see what this portal looks like, man, in just a couple of days, January 2nd. Because not only are you going to be able to go and get your big fish, but it is pretty inevitable that you're going to lose players, right? Again, I mentioned yesterday, like on Twitter with the Kyle Whittingham stuff, Witt was recruiting a lot of these guys that ended up going to BYU, or even guys like, Carson Ryan that were at Utah and then ended up transferring to BYU. So with Witt going to Michigan, a lot of these BYU players, their phone's going to ring and BYU is going to have to decide like, okay, are we keeping these guys? We letting them walk. And if they do end up walking, then you got to go replace them. So it's going to be chaos in the next coming days, not just with the portal, but with whoever ends up leaving on the staff. We'll see. But I can't wait, man. It's going to be an exciting couple of days.
It is going to be an exciting couple of days. And I think as long as BYU is able to hold on to key guys like Parker Kingston, like Bear Bachmeyer, like we'll see what happens with Glasker. He's another guy who has the option to come back, but he can potentially leave for a last year, or he can declare for the draft, whatever he decides to do. Yeah. But that's another guy that you have to think about replacing this offseason. But if you're able to bring back a majority of the core, the younger players who have been standouts, who have been phenomenal, I'll add Valetas Atawala to that list, right?
Yeah,
if you're able to hold on to a majority of that core, I think BYU is in a phenomenal spot. It's just the importance of being able to hold on to those guys and being able to outbid the other schools who come for them, right? And then we'll see what happens with the coaching staffs and the domino effect that could potentially happen right now with everything that's happened in this in the college football world here in the state of Utah the last 24 hours or so, and then and then go from there. But I think it's important for BYU to try their absolute best to be able to hold on to the core players at least.
No, I'm glad you bring up Satawala because that is the big one. I mean, defensively, he, I think, is their biggest player that they need to lock in on. He has potential to be, like, I'm talking day 1 or 2 draft pick on defense, NFL draft pick.
No doubt.
He was a very, very special player this season, and he's just getting started. And again, bountiful kid. Utah was in on him. Kyle Whittingham was in on him in the past. And not just Kyle Whittingham in Michigan, but when that portal opens, I mean, the film is out there, right? These other schools that have been seeing him all year, they're gonna be like, how can we get that guy, right?
Yeah.
So just things like that, you're gonna have to pay up to keep your roster, and you're gonna get more and more expensive every year. But at the end of the day, again, circling back to it, Kalani Sitake's new contract, man, I think it was a scary couple of days, and it really would have sucked if he did not end up leaving. But he was able to kind of parlay that into not only is he coming back to BYU, but he's coming back with even more resources than they had in the last year. So his assistants are going to be getting paid more. The team is going to be getting paid more, and it's just setting things up nicely for the next couple of years.
Setting things up nicely for where I think Kalani wants to take this program, and that's Big 12 championships. To win some of those Big 12 championships and to be able to hoist up a trophy in Arlington, and then be able to play for college football playoffs and to actually make it into the playoff and be able to make it into and to be able to compete for that national championship, right? I think that's Kalani's goal. I think that's everybody, all that entire coaching staff's goal. And it is disappointing that this year you do fall short of those expectations, right? It ends up with a little bit of a disappointment where you lose to Texas Tech twice. You miss out on a Big 12 championship. You miss out on making it to the college football playoff. But again, to go back to what we were saying, if you're able to keep the core of the young guys that are the younger guys on this roster, if you're able to keep a majority of those key core players you're positioning yourself in a good spot for next season to be able to go back and say, we can make it back to that Big 12 championship game, and we can make it to the college football playoff this time around.
Yeah, once you get there, it's, you know what it takes, and there's no reason that BYU can't do it again next year. And they're not bringing back as much talent next year as they did this year, but they're bringing back enough to feel confident in knowing that they can do that. So again, BYU picking up the win today, 25-21 in the Pop Tarts Bowl over Georgia Tech. Big plays, right? Bear Bachmeier throws almost 40 times, tops 300 yards, tops 3,000 yards on the season. Cougars get a couple of touchdowns on the ground from their backup running backs. The defense shuts out Georgia Tech in the second half, and that's what allows the offense to come back and end up winning the game. One thing that was kind of brought up with Hatch a little bit, but the officiating was a mess in this game. Tons of missed calls all over. Phantom calls, missed calls. I mean, there's that one screenshot going around on Twitter of, I think it's Chase Roberts, just like you see his jersey stretching right in front of the ref in the red zone, in the end zone. Ridiculous, man. Ridiculous. I don't know. Was this an ACC crew, I believe?
I don't know, actually. I missed that part of the broadcast where they mentioned what league this crew was on. But you know what, man? I'm glad BYU was able to come back and be able to pull the win, because if they didn't, the discourse online and would be trying to going after those officials. And I'm a big believer that in sports, man, you have to do your absolute best to make sure that you're never in a position where you have to blame the officials for losing a game, right? You can do, there's moments in games where you can do better to make sure that you stay in control of games and you don't have to rely on officials making decisions. And I think in this one, you go back to that first drive and BYU gets stuffed on the goal line. Yeah. There's moments like that where you can execute better, you can play better, and you can be a little bit better and convert those red zone trips into touchdowns, and then you don't have to necessarily worry about officials and the officiating at the end of it. Because again, I think if BYU fails to come back and beat Georgia Tech, the conversation right now is that the officials screwed BYU out of a win.
I mean, it could have been. They still had the muffed kickoff, right? Bear Bachmeier throws a pick in the end zone, so there were definitely mistakes that were outside of officiating, but it's still infuriating when it just seems like everything was going against BYU.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like you said, hey, they won. That's what matters. They're eating Pop-Tarts right now. Yeah, that's all that matters. Let's get to getting a lot of post-game comments. Reminder, we are live on YouTube, on Facebook, on X. Feel free to leave us your thoughts on this game. A lot of people checking in. Shout out PNW. You've been checking in with us all season. Magic tarts happen. Love it. M Morris 6341 saying, I don't think Jay is going anywhere. Witt is proven to produce defensive coordinators. So yeah, that's a big storyline to keep an eye on. We'll hit on that more next. A lot of congrats go Cougs. People shouting out the seniors, Carson Ryan, Chase Roberts, Jack Kelly, Tanner Wall. Shout out those guys. Amazing last game as seniors for the Cougs. Getting the win is huge. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see Jack play, but what a season for him, man. Huge bright spot on the defense, and a lot of go Cougs all over. Drop your favorite Pop-Tart flavor in the chat. I'm a hot fudge sundae type of guy, I think.
Brown sugar cinnamon, man. Let's go.
And yeah, if you have any other thoughts on this BYU win, feel free to let us know. Let's go ahead and take a break. I don't know if we're going to get to a post-game press conference today. We're checking the YouTube channel, but these festivities go crazy with this Pop Tarts Bowl. So I don't know how long it's going to take until they get to the press room, and then we have to wait for them to post it. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll stay tuned. But let's go ahead and take a break, and then we'll touch a little bit more on the Jay Hill situation and the rest of this game next. Stick with us. It's the Cougar post-game show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
listening to the Cougar Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome into the Cougar Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, joined by Alex Napoles, as we've been doing all season, man. It's been a fun one. Alex, we've got some breaking news.
Absolutely. According to our guy, Hans Olsen, who is on the postgame show on the BYU Radio Network, he tweeted that Keanu Tanavasa announces his plans to return to BYU in 2026, which is massive for BYU. We were just talking about the core of players that need to return. I'd throw him right in there with that core, because I think that he's come in and he's done a phenomenal job. He's helped BYU's rush defense be a lot better than it has been in the past. And Keanu Tanavasa's return, I think, is massive for BYU.
Yeah, and I think the big thing with this season is we did not really get to see much of Tanavasa and Justin Kirkland together, with Kirkland being banged up a majority of the year. And that was like preseason. That was one of the biggest things that Jay Hill and these defensive guys were all excited about, is we've got two studs, two absolute brick walls on the interior defensive line. And unfortunately, Kirkland was hurt most of the year. I believe it was a foot, if I'm remembering correctly. Didn't get to see a ton of them. Kirkland did suit up today, but it's big for Tanavasa to announce he's coming back. Huge year at Utah last year. Obviously, controversial transfer to BYU over the offseason, and he's been a stud for the Cougs. And box score wise, I mean, he's not a stat sheet stuffer, but it's hard to do that as a big nose tackle, right? I mean, you just got to be a big body that is hard to move. And he is exactly that. And not only that, but he's a leader for this team. He's a guy that people gravitate towards. And, when he tells you to run through a brick wall, you're going to do it, unless it's himself, of course. Nobody can run through Tanavasa. So ultimately, getting Kirkland and Tanavasa back next year is going to be huge, assuming they're going to try and keep hold of Kirkland as well. But shout out to Hans for getting us some breaking news there.
Absolutely. And you hit it right on the head. He's an immovable wall. It's not going to have the flashiest numbers on the stat sheet. And at times, right, I think there was a little bit of I don't know if discipline issues is the right word, but there was a couple times where the unnecessary roughness penalties. There were some penalties
at some bad times.
The personal penalties at just the wrong times. Like, that's something that I think can absolutely be cleaned up for Tanavasa as he comes back next season. But regardless, I think it's just to be able to have him and to be able to hopefully rely on Kirkland as well next season, that would be huge for BYU's rushing defense.
Yeah. Some more breaking news coming out of the Pop Tarts Bowl. It sounds like Slammin' Strawberry will be back next year, setting up almost like an MCU style, like post-credit scene. They were showing like graves for the Pop Tarts that were eaten, and then the one that Strawberry was supposed to be on had a sign that said, "I will be back next year." Kind of like some Terminator 2 action, I guess. I'll be back.
Slammin' Strawberry will be back for Avengers Doomsday.
Yeah, he might be the villain. Some people are speculating. So I can't wait to get caught up on this stupid Pop-Tarts lore, man.
Oh, I love it.
Good stuff there. But again, BYU getting the win today, 25-21 in the Pop-Tarts Bowl over Georgia Tech. This should have been Notre Dame, right? They opted out of it, but I mean, geez, Georgia Tech gave BYU quite a game, right? Georgia Tech up 21-10 for a majority of the game. Cougars pulling off the comeback from behind victory, banged up quarterback. You get the win, and this is the bowl game that people watch, man. Like last year in the Alamo Bowl against Colorado, a lot of people were watching, and this one still beat it out. And this has become the spectacle of the bowl season outside of the college football playoff because of, and I bring up these stupid storylines and the dumb Pop-Tarts, and it's funny. I don't want to say cool. It's not cool. It's funny. It's goofy. And that's what makes this bowl special. And that's what makes people want to tune into it. And my point being, like, BYU showed up and played a hell of a game, and Georgia Tech showed up and they played a great game. And I think it's a testament to Kalani, right? Because you're not going to get a team that's just throwing in the cards and saying, "Oh, it's bowl season. Our best players are opting out and not playing because they're hurt or they want to go to the draft." Like, this team shows up, dude. You get Chase Roberts, you get Carson Ryan showing up, giving you huge performances. And that's what it's about. It's sending off this team with something to hang your hat on.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the third iteration of the Pop Tarts Bowl. This is the third year they're doing it. And the Big 12 so far has been great at showing up for the Pop Tart Bowl. Kansas State won it the first year. The Iowa State had a crazy game against Miami last season, right? Cam Ward, who ended up being the number 1 overall pick, didn't end up playing in that game, and it was 42-41, wild game, wild finish there. And then obviously now BYU getting the win over an ACC team. And so Big 12 has been successful in the Pop Tarts Bowl so far, and I think that in a world where college football, right, you don't necessarily care about bowl games, and the ACC and the Big 12 is kind of pushed aside when it comes to the SEC and the Big 10. I think this is a great way for the ACC and the Big 12 to showcase themselves, and I think it's even greater when a Big 12 team is able to go out and go win it, and it's even greater when it's BYU, because now I'm sure that the numbers will come out in a couple of days, and many of people will have seen the comeback effort from BYU, and that bodes well just to build the brand of BYU, and be able to put themselves in a better light when it comes to the committee deciding where they want to put BYU in the rankings.
You get screwed out of the playoffs last year. What do? You whoop Colorado's butt in the Alamo Bowl. And it's like, okay, they can't leave us out of the playoff again next year. They do, unfortunately. What do? You don't whoop Georgia Tech in the Pop Tarts Bowl, but you put on a crazy game, a comeback that, I mean, everybody was watching, right? There's nothing else on today besides there's some other bowl games, but who cares about those ones? This is the Pop Tarts Bowl, man. Like, this is the world of, like, bowl season revolves around the Pop Tarts Bowl. You got
the people's national champion, man.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's what the shirt said. It's funny, it's stupid, it's goofy, and you got people watching. It's a national stage. Like, it's not the college football playoff, but it's literally right below it. So what do? You put on a performance that people are going to watch and be like, oh wow, look at this BYU team. That's a freshman quarterback, and they just came back 21-10. What a game, you know?
Yeah.
So again, you kind of took a step up from the Alamo Bowl to the Pop Tarts Bowl. Logically, you'd think, okay, next season they're going to be in the college football playoff. Let's cross our fingers and hope, man, because that would be so cool. You never know what the committee's going to do, but BYU the last 2 years have been screwed out of the college football playoff. What do? They show up and give a memorable performance in the bowl game.
Absolutely. That, and I mean, give credit to Georgia Tech, man. They're a good football team. They're ready to know at one point of the season. They kind of fall apart there towards the end, but they're still a great ACC school, and it's a school that also too, like I guess in a way, is also building their brand. Kind of how we're talking about with BYU, they're kind of rebuilding their brand because they had a multiple 3-win seasons, and they weren't great. And then Brent Key's come in and kind of turn around the program, and they're playing a lot better. They're showing a lot better, and they want to be perennial contenders in the ACC as well. Similar to what we're seeing BYU and the step they took in the Big 12, right? Just give credit to them. They're a good football team, and for BYU to go out and beat a good football team, I think that's massive. This is a Georgia Tech team who took Georgia to the wire. They were in that Georgia game up until the very end. Georgia is a team in the college football playoff. They're competing for a national championship. BYU's only 2 losses is to Texas Tech. They're in the playoff. They're competing for a national championship. And so these are 2 good football teams going head to head. And BYU have the resilience, have the comeback in them to come back and win this game. And I think that speaks a lot to BYU and where they're at, right, in wanting to make this program a contender in the Big 12.
And now you turn the page to the off season, and we will see what happens in the coming days with Jay Hill. There's a lot of rumors out there. Again, we kind of touched on it earlier, like Whittingham's DC. It's not going anywhere. He's the next guy at Utah, right? So where does Kyle Whittingham turn to find his defensive coordinator for Michigan? And Wink Martindale is a great defensive coordinator who is already there at Michigan, but he's not running Witt's defense. And so what is the decision that he makes there? I would think that Witt brings people that he's familiar with, because that's always who he's been. Even him going out and getting Jason Beck as an offensive coordinator. I know Jason Beck kind of has local ties, but that was a guy that was like the most out of the box that you'll get from Kyle Whittingham. Like, this is a guy who has a very tight-knit network, and he sticks to that. And we'll see. I honestly, I don't have any sources, but I would be shocked if Jay Hill is the defensive coordinator for BYU next year. If he gets the opportunity to go to a school like Michigan, it's very rare to turn those opportunities down. So for Kalani Sitake to do what he did and turn down Penn State was huge. And I think BYU would be asking a little too much to have that happen twice, is 2 coaches turning down, huge Big Ten programs. So we'll see. But again, nothing is solidified. Nothing is official. Nothing is known yet. It's all just speculative, but it is something that I think BYU might have to brace for, because, it makes too much sense. It made too much sense for Whittingham to go to Michigan in the first place, and for him to build out his staff and his roster. He's probably going to bring some talent with him as well. But that is what's next for BYU. And we talk about what happens after the bowl game in the immediate days. Portal opens January 2nd, and we'll see.
Yeah. Player retention, coach retention. That's going to be what it's about for the next couple of weeks here for BYU. Try not to lose your players to the portal. Try to hold on to your coaches, and we'll see what ripple effect and what domino effect comes from the hiring of Kyle Whittingham at Michigan. Look, if I'm Jay Hill, maybe you're looking at this in a position where if you take the TC position at Michigan and you succeed there, and you guys you go and you have similar success to what you're having with BYU, if not better, right? This is and potentially maybe get Michigan back into the college football playoff. That opens up the door, I think, for Jay Hill to be able to move into a head coaching gig somewhere, man. And
yeah.
I think for Jay Hill, I think it would absolutely suck for BYU to lose him, but for him, you also have to be looking out for your career and where you want to go. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that Jay Hill eventually wants to be a head coach somewhere, and so that would be, I think, a great next stepping stone to try to get that.
It's tough because, man, he's getting a ton of credit at BYU, but at the end of the day, if Michigan finishes with 11 regular season wins, they're in the playoff. Yeah. And that's something that BYU has had to struggle with the last 2 years. I know locally we think they should be in. Everybody we work with think they should be in, right? But that's just, unfortunately, that's not how they're perceived nationally. So for Jay Hill or any other assistant for that matter, we can just use Jay Hill as a placeholder, right? It's not happening right now, getting the national recognition. So if they've got a chance to go somewhere like a Michigan, it's not Michigan State. It's not some random Big Ten school. This is one of the programs in college football.
This is a team that won a national championship 3 years ago.
Yeah. And what is it? One of the winningest programs ever. And so it's a big deal. And it would suck to lose these guys. I know there's still a lot of BYU fans even chiming in the comments right now, pretty adamant that Jay Hill is not leaving. Look, I'll tell you, that would be great, man, because he's done great things with this BYU defense. But I'm just trying to say I don't blame him if he does leave. And it could happen. It might not. It might not. So we'll see. But stay tuned with KSL Sports, man. I mean, we were all over this stuff yesterday. Shout out to everybody involved. I know you were obviously producing the show. And then, we had boots on the ground. We had talent chiming in all day. So again, as this story continues to evolve, and BYU is going to be intertwined right with it. This isn't just a Utah story, man. We always talk about these two programs being, so closely connected with each other. BYU is going to be affected by this a lot. And to the extent, I guess, is what we're going to find out in the next few days. But It's going to be crazy, man. Buckle up.
It's going to be crazy, but we'll be right there every step of the way.
Let's close this. So throughout our BYU post-game shows throughout the season, we've been doing an offensive and defensive MVP for the game. I'm calling an audible here. Do you want to do one for the season, Alex? Or do you want to just stick to the game?
Why not both, man?
We can do both.
Why not both? I think for the game, it has to be Carson Ryan.
Yeah.
As far as the offensive MVP goes, finished with plus 100 I think for the first time in his career. Had 120 total yards in this one. Made some big plays and some big catches and some big times for BYU. And so Carson Ryan MVP in this one for sure. Defensively, I want to say Evan Johnson for the game sealing INT, man.
Okay.
Coming up, I think Jake Hatch hit it on the head perfectly, right? He was in the coverage when he gave up the big play, but he comes back and he makes a phenomenal play on defense in the end zone, no less, to be able to stop Georgia Tech from coming back and taking that league. And so defensive MVP, I'm gonna have to say Evan Johnson.
I'll throw Keanu Tanavasa an honorable mention there, getting a blocked field goal. Honestly, that was huge. Georgia Tech not coming away with any points there at the end of the third quarter led BYU. I mean, even with them missing the field goal right there, that's where BYU takes over. And then BYU scores on that drive after the missed field goal. So I think that block was huge, and that kept the game within 3. I mean, obviously BYU scored and went up 25-21. So I think that block field goal was big, but yeah, Evan Johnson game sealing INT. I think either one of those guys, it's definitely fair to say. What about season long offensive MVP?
Season long offensive MVP, man. Give me Bear Blockmeyer.
Really? Okay.
Give me the quarterback. I know. Probably like it's a toss up for me between LJ and Bear, but for as amazing as LJ has been, I mean, you have to give credit to Bear for being the storyline you've heard all season long, for being a true freshman coming in and doing what he's did and doing what he's done and being able to lead this BYU team to 12 wins, man. I think that is incredible.
Yeah.
And I think deserves a lot of recognition. And so as a true freshman, man, offensive MVP of the season, give me Bear Blockmeyer.
I'll go LJ Martin, led the Big 12 in rushing. He was the Big 12 first team, if I'm not mistaken, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. So I'll go with LJ there. Defensive MVP, a couple candidates, but I think there's one above the rest, right?
For me, it's Jack Kelly.
Yeah, I think that's the easy answer there, Jack Kelly.
For me, it's Jack Kelly, man. I mean, this game alone, you see the difference that he makes. In that first half, the defense looked out of sorts, and some of the guys who were stepping in for Jack Kelly in this one wasn't. I think they just struggled to get comfortable in the game, but once they did, it was fine. But just not having Jack Kelly, and you see the impact that he has on that defense. Yeah, all season long, he has been phenomenal. Playing through injury too, here in the later parts of the season, right, and be able to battle through that and be able to come up big for BYU despite having to play through some of those injuries. And Jack Kelly, man, he's been phenomenal all season. And defensive MVP for me all season long has been Jack Kelly. Yeah,
I think it's fair to say he's been. It sucks that you're playing in the same conference as Jacob Rodriguez, man, because that dude is a stud. But Jack Kelly, if not for J-Rod, would be, I think, the best linebacker in the conference. I mean, he's been phenomenal, doing it all right in pass coverage, also blitzing. You brought up earlier 10 sacks on the season. You don't see that from your inside linebackers, from your off-ball linebackers, I should say. So, yeah, phenomenal dude, great leader. Hopefully he goes on and has a tremendous NFL career. And this is a guy that Jay Hill brought over from Weber State. So that's a fun little story, right?
Absolutely.
Again, sucks that Jack Kelly was not active today, but you're hoping that he can hear his name called in April and then go on to have, I mean, Fred Warner sets the bar pretty dang high, but I'm confident Jack Kelly can go be a really good NFL player.
Absolutely. And then we'll see what Isaiah Glasker decides to do, whether he decides to come back, whether he decides to go to the NFL or whatever his future may hold. But I think honorable mention has to go to Glasker because those two tandem, that pairing has been the best in the Big 12.
I'll throw an honorable mention too, just while we're throwing honorable mentions. Falatau Satuala, I think, has been the rising star of the defense. And I think he is going to be, if I had to sit here and predict who's going to be BYU's defensive player of the year next year, I think it's going to be Falatau Satuala. I cannot wait to see what he does. I guess he'd be a redshirt sophomore next year. So he's going to be a rising star. He could be one of the best defensive players in the entire country. By the time it's said and done at BYU, I think he's going to be one of the top safeties in the conference, and he's going to get a lot of attention.
Absolutely. But it's imperative. It's vital for BYU to be able to hold on to Falatau.
They got to hold on
through this transfer portal. Absolutely. And you hope that he's able to come back and be able to have a continue to build on the incredible season he had this season and be just as amazing and even better next season for BYU.
Yeah, I can't wait. Alex, thank you for joining, doing this with me all season, the Cougar Postgame Show. It's been a lot of fun doing it the first year. Want to thank everybody who's tuning in right now, anybody who tuned in at any point throughout the season. Shout out to Parker for producing this one. Sean has produced several, as well as Alma and even Hatch. And then Hatch and Kerry have been jumping on as well in the postgame, helping us out. I get it. They don't want to give it up completely. They still miss doing it. So thank you to everybody involved. And thank you to watching. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles signing off. Last Cougar postgame show of the season. Maybe we'll catch you next year. We'll see. Till then, stick with us. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Stay tuned for all the best BYU coverage.